Let's talk now about who should get up off the sofa and volunteer. I hope to encourage and trigger viewers to consider volunteering their skills in situations where, hey, you may not previously have considered as suitable for you. Someone told me once about the 3 T's of volunteering. You can be your treasure, your time and your talents. Your treasure is money, you donate. Anyone can do that, and it's wonderful to do that. Most people did that. Billions of dollars after the tsunami. But volunteering your time and talents is the stuff that is inspiring. So there's a place for everyone to do that, giving their time and talent. So let's discuss that. What can you do? So I've talked about disasters, but to be honest, it can be difficult to actually help there initially. It's kind of chaotic and hard to get in there, and they really need experienced people, and there's nowhere to stay. And it's actually better to gain experience in more regular situations with organisations. So volunteer for an organisation and help, and then you're ready to help in a disaster because they know you and they know that you know what it's all about. And once you've been there, you'll be invited back. That's the point. And that's how I get there. I get a call when there's a disaster. If there's a disaster tomorrow in Indonesia, I'll get a call. You form a relationship with an organisation, you work with them regularly, they become your friends. If you've been there a lot, you do a lot of mentoring. So maybe until that time, take some vacation time and work with some of these organisations. And in the description below I list ways that you can find organisations. I've listed their websites, their names, their websites in a bunch of different countries, 20 or 30 different countries. From homeless shelters to big organisations such as Red Cross, World Vision, Peace Corps, etc. There'll be somewhere for you, honestly, and it may not work the first time, maybe the second time. But there's something you can do, and I was told by an accountant once after I came back from the tsunami in the Indian Ocean that he told me that he watched the evening news, wanted to jump up and help, but he wasn't a doctor like me, and he was an accountant, so all he could do was to donate money. You actually can go and do other work. And it's sort of obvious if you're a healthcare worker or an engineer, etc., but there are a lot of other roles that you probably don't know about. I'll just pick one beautiful example. A lot of the kids in Aceh were orphaned or struggling a lot. There were thousands, tens of thousands of kids like that. And a lady brought a soccer ball and started playing soccer with the kids. They were sad. She started playing. It worked a miracle. The kids were running and laughing and engaging with each other. It was a great example of how you didn't need to be a doctor or a nurse, but just someone with a heart and an idea and a committed strategy, and you can help kids who are struggling. If you look hard enough for opportunities, you will find them. And there are many, many roles that you can do. And again, it doesn't have to be an international disaster. It can be a local food bank, homeless shelters, drug clinics, helping the disabled. It could be handing out food, driving trucks, or just playing soccer with kids. So we've discussed who. Let's just discuss how to go about volunteering. Having now risen from the sofa and decided you're going to do something and got onto the website and looked at different places, what can you do? Well, here's a useful checklist to start. First is choose a volunteer service that's based on what works for you: time, talents, personal strengths, weaknesses, challenges, etc. It could be local or international. It could be acute, such as a disaster, flood, bushfire, etc. Or longer term, which is the more organised and predictable community outreaches for education, public health, homeless, etc. And as I suggested, you might want to start with that. Secondly, research the organisation's credibility and impact and inquire about ongoing training and support for volunteers. Thirdly, don't think you have to get it right first. Don't be afraid to change to another role. You might find that the first thing you tried didn't work, or the second one, try something else. Don't be frightened. Fourth, be sure to understand the time commitment. Don't overcommit, don't undercommit. Ask questions early about what the commitment is. Next point, enjoy it. You don't have to be miserable up there. I mean, it can be hard work, but enjoy it. I've always found this stuff to be by and large enjoyable. And finally, really important, you've got to be prepared, especially if it's a disaster zone. And I'm just going to come back to that. In video number 2 in the series, I talked about some very tough times up in Aceh. And in doing that video, I had to go back and remember it all, and touched my heart all over again. In fact, if you watch that video, you'll see why. In fact, last weekend at the gym, as I was thinking about it, I was sitting on a bike and one of my PhD students walked in. So I walked over to him and said, "Mate, if you see me crying, don't worry." And I told him the reason. I was thinking, my mind was going back to my time in Aceh and the intensity of the emotions. Didn't want him calling the security. But I will spend just a minute focusing back specifically on disaster relief. Again, whether it's a tsunami, earthquake, flood, bushfire, cyclone, it would be remiss of me not to discuss it a bit more. You need to be prepared for the intensity of it. And despite the challenges, I hope I've made it clear that the experience is overwhelmingly good, rich and personally good and great friends and stuff. But you do need to be prepared for the hard parts. And if you volunteer to work in a disaster situation, expect some stress at times. And I've told you in a previous video about the boys playing soccer, the girl who lost her grip on her little sister and never saw her again, the school teacher who lost his wife and both daughters, and closing the door and weeping myself for the grief of it all. But to be clear, I repeat, it was a rich experience, exciting, fun and interesting. Just have to be ready for those difficult times. And it's important to be aware that some of those stresses can come back to bite you when you come home. When I headed home from Aceh, for example, flew in through Medan to Singapore, and I went into the Singapore lounge, and I got to the front door of the lounge and I saw all these lights and sofas and carpets, and it was very sophisticated, and I actually had reverse culture shock. I couldn't walk in. Amazing how quickly you can find that that coming back feeling to be a struggle. And then I got back, I think on a Saturday night. The next morning I went to our local church and the vicar said, "Oh Bruce, great to see you back. Could I interview you from the podium this morning at church?" I said, "No way. No way, Kanishka. I wouldn't get through the interview. I'd break down and cry, nor will I do it next week. It's going to take a while." It wasn't until he asked me that I realised just how vulnerable I felt. It can take a while. But look, these challenges can help you learn and grow. They can soften your heart and make you a more empathic and insightful and wiser person. In that way, these challenges can, as does any form of suffering, make you better rather than bitter. And I've written about that, as I mentioned in this book, Behind the Tears. Understanding, surviving and growing from suffering. And there is a link below, and honestly I don't care to make any money out of this book, so honestly if you find people who need it and you want to buy a box to give out to people, just let us know and you can probably have it, the whole thing at cost price. But look, this last episode is focusing on standing up from your sofa during the evening news and volunteering to help. So I need to finish again by reminding you of the four main groups of people who I imagine especially might like to volunteer. I mean, anyone can, anyone should, but I'm just focusing on four groups. One is health professionals. That's obvious, they can go to help. Secondly, parents and grandparents to inspire your kids and grandkids and others. Thirdly, anyone whose life has become bland and boring and you need to re-energise your spirit. And fourthly, tourists to add a week to your overseas holiday, volunteering your skills, your time and your talents. And remember the soccer ball strategy that I told you before. So maybe next time when you're watching human suffering on the evening news and feel an urge to help, avoid the but tray. But this, but I'm busy. Give it a go. Remember the why, remember the who, and remember the how from this video. And I'll repeat, go to the website listed below, into the description, put yourself into the story. So from your sofa, please do more than just donate money. Give your time and talents, get up, volunteer, and those who suffer will benefit, and so will you, so will your family and students.